Hello and welcome to Behind the Lines. I'm Diane Dayton. You know, there are a lot of amazing things in Lancaster County. And one thing I know we've never really talked about on this show are the barns. And boy, are there a lot of barns to talk about. In fact, there's going to be a barn tour coming up. And right now with us, we have the Historic Preservation Trust of Lancaster County, the Executive Director. We have Danielle Keperling. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And we also have Elaine Bowman, who's a member of this organization. She's also the barn tour chairperson. Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you.
Well, how many barns are there in Lancaster County? Do we even know?
It's estimated that there are about 2,500 left.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that tells you how many there were before, doesn't it? So you're putting together this amazing drive-by barn tour. And tell me, how did all of this start, Danielle?
So it was all Elaine's idea.
Okay, here we go. It's Elaine.
So Elaine was leaving. She was on the board of the Historic Preservation Trust until last year. And one of her last board meetings, she said, would you consider doing a countywide barn tour? We do architectural tours usually every other year. And she asked if we would be interested in doing that with, in conjunction with the Historical Society of the Calico Valley. And I thought it was a great idea. There were no objections from the board, so Elaine just kind of ran with it.
Well, Elaine, you're so vested in the community. You've been here and you've had a big impact as a coach and in various other capacities too. What was it about the barns?
I think growing up at the edge of my grandfather's farms and just spending a lot of time in those barns, doing everything from jumping from the rafters into the hay mounds to learning how to move tobacco all the way up to the top of the rafter. So I have a deep appreciation for not just the architecture, but I think the history that goes with those barns.
Yeah.
It's really an integral part of Lancaster County.
Well, this took a lot to put together, didn't it? So
Yeah.
it really did take a team with a lot of the writing and the research. Tell us about that.
So it started with us sending out letters to all the municipalities and the historical societies asking for, and then we put out, there were articles in the newspaper asking people to submit barns for consideration.
Okay.
We got over 100 barns submitted. We looked at the map and realized that we were missing some parts of the county, so we went then and looked for more barns. But we narrowed it down. We selected barns that were different styles, in different states of either preservation or in need of repair, but also different uses. So whether they're agricultural or they've been adaptively reused or they're just being used for storage on somebody's property. That was the first step, was just identifying the barns, and then we sent out photographers to take photographs, and we've researched the history. We also are working with Greg Huber, who is a barn historian, and he is doing the architectural descriptions of the barns, because there are different types of barns throughout the county.
Okay. And this is going to be also a tour book, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So we, the photographs, the descriptions, everything is going into the tour book, and then people will be able to purchase this, and then there's over 50 barns on the tour, so they'll be able to go around, whether they pick a section of the county or just want to do a couple at a time. They can go and use this tour, the book. It's an ongoing tour. It's not like you can only go on the day that the tour book launches.
Right, which is great because it gives you options to do with a friend, by yourself, or bring the whole family, and it is a multi-generational experience, right, Elaine?
We see families doing this together. And part of our reason for putting this together is because we want people to appreciate other areas of the county, not just the highly publicized tourist areas. There are a lot of areas in Lancaster County that are quite beautiful and untouched and untraveled, and we'd like to get folks out into those areas also.
And that's going to be a way to do this. Yep, and you can do it pretty much in almost any kind of weather as long as you can still drive.
Right. Timeless.
Yeah.
Now, some of the restrictions on this are what? You have to just watch from your car, right?
Yes.
We definitely are saying up front in bold rules in the book, definitely, we do not want folks on private property. These are actually working farms, working barns, and they belong to people. and we don't want anyone to be on that property. They'll be able to drive by or slow down, put your flashers on,
Yeah.
and certainly take pictures if they want more than what is available in the book.
Yeah.
But we are just saying up front, do not go on these
And
people's
there
property.
are a few on the site that are public, or on the site in the tour book, like that are owned by the state, like Landis Valley or the Ephrata Cloister, and then also like Mennonite Life with the 1719 house. So we will have the information if people want to. I don't know if the barns are always open on those sites, but at least those sites are open to the public. But definitely the private property, we're telling people that they just need to watch from the street.
And there are a couple commercial properties also
Okay.
that are used for commercial purposes, obviously,
Yeah.
markets, bakery, cafe, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So those are open to the public.
This is going to allow for a lot of exploration, isn't it?
It is.
And that's what the excitement is with this too, isn't it? It's getting you out of an area perhaps that you've never explored before.
Correct.
And that you can do this too. So barns, there's been a real evolution, hasn't there?
Yes. Yeah. So initially, and one of the oldest properties on the tour was it 1717 was the initial land grant, and there's no evidence of the barn that was on that property at that time, because the barns were built as log houses, just like a log house. So they were
okay.
log barns.
Right.
The majority at the turn of the 1800s, the majority of the barns in Lancaster County were log, and then those started to deteriorate. So then they built out of stone or brick, as those were more readily available. The stones usually filled stone from the property, and then there were a lot of local brick makers. But there is a log barn that is visible at Landis Valley.
Oh, wow. Okay,
So so that is available for people to see. But that was what was typical, and so even though you have these very old properties, the barns usually aren't that old, nor are the houses on the property.
Okay. This is quite an experience when you get out there and start looking at these properties. Some of the things we were talking about, bank, Yankee, address some of that, Elaine.
A lot of the barns in Lancaster County are bank barns, and that means there is a forebay on the bottom or the lower part, and the top part of the barn where you go in is up an embankment to the
Yeah.
second level. So you see a lot of those in Lancaster County. On occasion, you'll see a Yankee barn, which usually found in New England. They're a bit smaller. But again, most in Lancaster County are bank barns.
Well, the structure itself and what it's made of, a lot depends upon the usage, right?
Yes, yeah. And then there's tobacco sheds or barns, depending on who you're talking to. But they typically, you can tell that it is for drying tobacco, because it has either louvered or slats that open to allow the air circulation.
And we did feature a couple of tobacco barns,
Okay.
sheds
Yeah.
in the book. Also, a corn crib or two.
Oh, okay.
They're all really auxiliary structures, but they're important
Yeah.
in the farming process.
Yeah, the outbuildings, and as as agriculture has changed, the uses have changed, and a lot of the modern farms that you see around the county, they're not even using the historic barns. They built new buildings that are more used for large scale agriculture.
Okay.
In the southern end of the county, we saw a number of barns that were built on the same footprint as the original barn.
Okay.
But when they were reconstructed, they were built of cement block and siding.
Okay.
So the only thing historic about those is the actual footprint.
Okay. So there's going to be actually a book launch on October 21st, 10 to 2, Landis Valley. But you will be able to get your book after that too. Tell us just a little bit briefly about that.
So from 10 to 2, we're going to have speakers. The site administrator is going to speak about the barns at Landis Valley, and then Greg Huber will also be speaking. It'll be a place for people to pick up their books if they pre-purchase them, and it'll also be included just in that day is the admission to Landis Valley to be able to see those barns.
Okay. Do we have a price on the book?
It is $35 if it's picked up.
Okay.
There'll be a little bit extra
All
for
right.
shipping.
Yeah, okay, no, that sounds really good. So your actual website is hptrust.org, correct?
Correct.
What are we going to find there?
There's all kinds of stuff on that website. There's it has our upcoming events, and we definitely have highlighted the barn tour. It also has information about preservation in Lancaster County. So we are the only countywide organization that advocates and educates for the preservation of our built environment.
Yeah, and that's huge. And that's really important because there's so much history here in Lancaster, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Well, this barn tour, this drive-by, and the book is going to be fascinating. It's going to be a lot of fun to do. So it is a group effort. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a quick switch out of personnel. We're going to tell you more about the fabulous barn tour. It's coming up real soon. Stay with us.
You're watching Lancaster Community TV, LCTV 66.
Welcome back to Behind the Lines. We're talking about the Lancaster County Barn Tour. And we were talking to someone from the Historic Preservation Trust. We just talked to Danielle. We're now going to talk to Angela Stewart. She's Vice President of the Historical Society of Cocalico Valley, of which, once again, Elaine Bowman, you are also a member. So you're kind of like all over the place with this.
She is the glue.
She is the glue. And I know she's the motivator and she's the driver. And yeah, she adds a lot to this as well. So it does take a lot of people. It takes coming together of local historical societies and that sort of thing to do this, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't have gotten as many nominations for barns on this tour without our historical societies in the county. They were a big part of how we came about this and were able to get the barns that we've gotten.
That makes total sense. And there are some really unique ones too, aren't there?
There are some fantastic ones on this tour. And ones that I had never knew that existed, like a family of pink barns.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Over near Manheim.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
And
Great story.
yeah, there it is. There's a great story behind it. It will be in the book.
Yeah, we're not telling you.
Well, feel free to tease anything, okay?
Well, there are. So I think Danielle had hinted to the fact, or had touched on the fact that there barns in this area were made of various materials, and so in addition to like your sandstone and limestone, which you typically see, there were also some made of brick.
Right.
And we have just a couple fine examples of what's called like reticulated brick pattern barn.
Okay.
That in Lancaster County, and we have 2 of those featured
Okay.
on this tour. So those are also kind of special, shall we say.
I think a lot of people think Lancaster County is the hub of barns with hex signs. We found some, but there are many, many more in Berks and Lehigh County with hex signs.
Really?
But we do have a few. We also featured the quilt barns. I think I can talk about that.
Please do.
There are a number of barns in Lancaster County that have quilts painted on the quilt patterns painted on them. So we have featured those. Give a little snippet of what's in
like
the
a
book,
little-
and that's all we're going to tell you.
A little mini tour in there for the quilt barns. And we have one round barn
Oh, okay.
that's featured.
Okay.
And that's actually a business, so people would be able to, during
inside and-
business hours,
And do
and
that
come and
well.
visit that as well.
Yeah.
We do have a variety. Some
Yes.
some are simply farming barns that are
Right.
used in farming operations. Some have been converted to, or repurposed, I should say, to commercial uses. And there are a couple that are museums.
Right.
So we do have a variety. It's not
is.
just a barn that's used on a farm.
How many man hours do you think has gone into this? I know, who could even guess? But go ahead, Elaine, say
Well,
something.
Way back in January, I had this vision, along with Danielle. We kind of put this together. We have a fairly small committee. There's only 7 of us, but I think everybody on that committee has their own area of expertise, and I think that's what made a small committee make good work, not necessarily quick work, but good work of a task that seemed overwhelming at some point.
Oh, I bet.
I think the hardest part was coordinating the photographs and the write-ups that we're finishing up now, and the architectural write-ups that Greg Hubert is doing for us. All of that into a central location, and then getting it to the person who is putting together the book for us. And we've got to have that to the printer also. So there were a lot of steps along the way. We first met in January, and it was amazing. We had every task laid out up until October.
Okay.
And we just checked them off. So that's really a credit to this committee.
Right,
They
and
were
everybody
amazing.
coming together and working together.
Yes.
Right.
That's huge.
Everybody
oh, it
knew
is.
their
It
job.
is. It's been fantastic. I mean, and everybody, we've all been committed to this project. We've all stepped up and did what was necessary to get this project to completion. Because if you think about it, 50 barns that we feature. We had over 100 barns that we had to narrow down. We had we're going to need to do some historical write-ups for each featured barn, the architectural aspects of the barn, and then the photographs for each one. Really, in hindsight, I'm kind of surprised that we pulled it off. But it was one of those things where, it ended up being a monumental project. That was great.
Early on in this process, it was kind of interesting. You know, a lot of people drive around. You don't think about looking at barns.
Right.
But a couple people on the committee said they got to the point where maybe like March or April, everywhere they were going, they're looking for barns
Right.
to see if they were tour material. And never interested before, but now we've got all these people interested in the barns.
I was one of them. I was that girl, to the point where I had my mother in the car with me, and we would be driving somewhere, and she'd go, "Now, is that barn on the tour? Maybe we should go drive back. We need to go check that one out." And I'm like, oh my gosh, now we're driving. All of a sudden we're going, oh, there's one over there.
Yeah.
It really did become one of those passion projects.
Well, I think for a lot of people, it turned into a labor of love, too,
It did.
didn't it?
Absolutely.
And I think from the beginning it was for you because of that connection.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think my connection with my grandfather's properties and having such a good time in his barn, the one in town, jumping from the rafters and learning to put away tobacco, and going out to that barn before he went on a fox hunt and actually seeing that red fox in this part of the barn where he kept the fox.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great memories, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great memories.
So this tour really is for anybody, like we were talking about
Yes.
earlier, too.
It truly is. I mean, this is for, anybody who just wants maybe something economical for the family to do. For $35, you can take the whole family and go out and view barns.
Many
Many
times.
barns. And it's educational.
Yes.
In the fact that it is about the history. It kind of goes through a little bit of the history of Lancaster County and what we were about.
Yeah.
It is a fundraiser, but I'm going to say that's our third reason for doing this. The first really is educational.
Yep.
Educational idea that people are learning about barns, learning more about Lancaster County history. I just think that's really important that we pass that on. Really do.
Yeah.
And then the preservation aspect.
Right.
Right.
And I mean, one of the reasons, not only did we select the featured barns due to their geography but also their uses, what they're currently used for as well, so that we had some diversification in there. And it's just been a really great experience for.
It's been interesting. We had different reactions to folks whose barns we wanted to feature. One of the people said to me, "No, I'm not interested. I don't want all these people nosing around my barn." And the next people were very excited. They said, "Oh, do we have time to paint our barn before the tour?" And I said, "You don't have to paint your barn."
Right.
But they did clean it up.
Yeah, well, there you go, and that
So it's
makes a
interesting.
difference.
Yeah.
It does, too. So tell me a little bit more, Angela, what the Historical Society of Cocalico Valley.
Yes.
And you've got your website, which is Cocalico Valley, What are we going to
Yes.
find there? What's that all about?
It is a local historical society, particularly of, it says Cocalico Valley, which kind of encompasses this area of Ephrata, Denver, part of Clay, down into
Earl
Reamstown, West
Western
Cocalico Township.
Okay.
So it kind of spans a much larger area than just
Okay.
Ephrata, where it is currently located. And so we have a great research library on site, and we have a Connell Mansion on site that you can go in and visit. And so anybody who would like information
Okay.
for our area, they're a wonderful resource.
Okay, that's great.
And yes.
So the book itself the book launch is October 21st at
21st,
Landis
Landis
Valley. This is
Valley.
2023. And after that, where can we get the book?
Well, you can get them at either the Historic Preservation Trust of Lancaster or at the Historical Society of Cocalico Valley.
Okay.
We will have them in-house for you to
Okay.
purchase.
Can they get online?
Yes, you can get on to either of our websites. You absolutely can get them online. We'll also be selling them at a couple of other places. One in particular that has already graciously agreed to sell the book is Mainspring Ephrata,
Yes, they do a
and the
great
Ephrata
job.
Cloister. Matter of fact, we, with the Historical Society of Cocalico Valley, Ephrata Cloister and us are we really do want to try to make sure that we offer each other's
Absolutely.
options.
Cross promote and
Yes.
tie it all together because it makes sense.
It does. We're so close. We're right down the road from
It
each
makes a
other.
lot
It
of
only
sense.
makes sense to
It
try to
makes-
make sure
yes,
that
it does. It
that
does.
we both get highlighted.
Landis Valley will also handle the book.
Okay.
Yes.
And we are offering the opportunity to any historical society in the county to purchase books from us for resale.
That's excellent.
So
Yes.
it's really, you'll be able
Yep.
to buy it throughout the county.
So thank you to everybody, and thank you to the sponsors that are a part of this as well too, because that's huge. And I think this will make a great gift, whether it's to yourself or to someone else too.
Absolutely.
And a lot of adventure for many, many times to come. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
taking time today, and the barn tour. You really don't want to miss it. Thank you for joining us today too. I'm Diane Dayton with Behind the Lines, reminding you to look behind the lines. You might be surprised what you find.